I've been able to spend a week with this 2023 Lexus RZ, the first fully electric Lexus, and I've got some things that I like and some things that I don't like. Real quick before we get started, this is not a full review. If you want to see all the details and features on the trim levels for the RZ, I've got a full video in the description below. This is just some things that I like and don't like, but let's get started. Now, starting with my dislikes, in no real particular order, I'm gonna start inside, and it's gonna be this thing over our heads. It's the fact that we have this panoramic glass roof, and sure, it looks cool, but you can't cover it. This one in this premium model doesn't even have an option to make it opaque. If you get the luxury model, you can make it opaque, but I don't like having just a glass roof. I want something to be able to cover it. I don't really honestly like all that much light coming in here. Maybe that's just me, but I live in the South where it gets pretty hot, where it's sunny a lot, and there is definitely still light that gets here. Obviously, they're gonna make it so that it doesn't get too hot, so that it's not like just clear glass roof or regular, glass, but still, I can feel the sun hitting my forehead in the middle of the day when I'm already hot, and I don't like it. Okay, now starting with my likes in no particular order is the fact that this is finally actually Lexus's first full EV. So if you wanted to stick with the Lexus nameplate and have a pure electric vehicle, you couldn't do that before. There used to be just such a minimal selection of EVs. Now there's getting to be so many, and Lexus has finally entered the space, and I'm happy that they did. Now the next dislike that I would have is my absolute least favorite thing about this Lexus. For me personally, it's the range. So a lot of you probably are just gonna drive in the city, in town. You're not gonna need a ton of range because you can charge at home. But the maximum range that this is quoted for is 220 miles, and that's if you have the smaller wheels. If you get bigger wheels, it's 196 miles. Now, that's a lot of miles that you can go in town with regular trips, but if you have to go outside of the infrastructure where there's charging areas like I do on a regular basis, that's not gonna cut it. And compared to some other EVs, there's some that are way higher. So Lexus definitely needs to up it. For their first EV, I guess it's a pass, but something to keep in mind is that the range, bug just flew in my eye, is that the range is not very good. And especially for the price point. This starts at 60 grand, and there's a range mode inside to get the most amount of range, and that limits you. It only gives you rear wheel drive, it limits your air conditioning, and if you're doing cruise control like on the highway or something, it limits your speed. So, not ideal. Okay, my next thing that I like is that when you get into some EVs, they're just totally different. They're just out there, they're different, they're wild, they're weird. But when you get in this Lexus, it's gonna feel very familiar to other Lexuses. I mean, things look the same, things feel the same. The layout is so similar as well. So it's not gonna be a huge adjustment getting in here. This is very similar to like the new NX, the new RX, the way that things work, the steering wheel, the actual feeling of different things like the buttons and stuff. This display is shared with another Lexus too. You've got the digital camera mirror up there. Everything still looks and feels like a traditional Lexus. All right, y'all, now another dislike here is behind the wheel. It's the fact that we don't have one pedal drive mode. In fact, it's a pain in the butt to change any drive modes in here. You have to go into the screen in order to change the drive mode, which is just kind of annoying. There's no button or anything right here. You do have paddles for regeneration, which I'm going to segue into a little bit later, which is close to one pedal driving. It's just a heavier regeneration, more braking. Like this, I'm not touching the brake at all, but I will have to, unlike regular one pedal driving, which a lot of you with EVs are probably used to. It's kind of a shame that they don't have that. Now, another like here is something I talked about just a second ago. It's the paddles for regeneration. So you can have it just in normal mode. Doesn't matter what drive mode you're in. Just the paddles, like it's in drive. There's no regeneration, and you kind of coast a little bit. It's just like a normal car. But I can also hit the regeneration paddles and increase how much regeneration this car has to where I don't have to touch the brake. So even though we don't have one pedal driving, I like that we can still at least get a partial one pedal drive mode. Let off the accelerator, it slows you down. You can decrease that. You've got different levels of intensity for regeneration. So if you're coasting or if you're going down a hill, you could maybe turn that on a little bit so you can capture and absorb a lot of energy instead of just wasting it rolling down a hill. Okay, my next dislike is the fact that, with some vehicles, I'm not gonna name any, you get a front trunk. You get a big front trunk. You do not have a front trunk with this Lexus RZ, as you can see. But that's not the only thing that you don't get that a lot of vehicles have. You don't get a glove box. There's actually no glove box in here. Now you do have an extra little tier storage right there. Otherwise you just have this center console, but that's kind of surprising. No glove box or no front trunk. Now the next thing that I like is that this RZ, even though it's not a sporty car per se, it is still very fun to drive and it's comfortable. It's got a nice comfortable ride for an EV. I'm not always a fan of EV ride comfort, but this one is pretty smooth and quiet and comfortable. And even though this isn't a sporty model or anything like that, it's not meant to be, it's not targeted to be, it's still really quick. You've got all-wheel drive, you've got this electric powertrain. 0 to 60 time is 5 seconds. So it's pretty fun to drive still. Now another thing I don't like is the steering wheel controls. I've complained about this on other Lexuses before. Obviously you can see the arrows, there's no markings. There's no markings on there as well. You can kind of customize what goes on each side, but there's already some preset options there too. And I just leave it the way it is, but it's still annoying. So if you don't have the head-up display, it will show up on there. Otherwise, if you have the head-up display, you have to rely on it showing up on there. And sometimes when it's sunny and you got polarized lenses on, you can't see it. So you might not even know what button you're pushing because you have this set of menus, then you have this set of menus. So you might be messing with your audio, but really you're actually pushing the phone or the voice button, and it's not all that sensitive. So I've got my thumb on it now. So it takes a second for it to register. You almost have to push it twice or touch it twice in order for it to kick in. It works the same way on the other side. So you've got cruise control stuff here, or you can have head-up display stuff. And you don't actually know which one you're on. And I believe when you have cruise active, you can't adjust your head-up display, which you probably won't need to, but I wish we had actual preset buttons with markings on them. That's just me though. The next thing is you got a good amount of standard features that I really appreciate in here. So you've got heated and ventilated seats that even have memory settings standard. The steering wheel even has power controls standard for your memory settings too. Not to mention this is a heated power steering wheel and the softest leather I think I have ever felt on a steering wheel before. These are all standard. Rain sensing wipers over here are standard. That 14-inch screen over there is standard. In addition to just the screen, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are standard with a wireless charging mat. That's something that Genesis can't say. They don't do wireless CarPlay or Android Auto. You see a little bit of it right here, and I talk about it in other videos, but you've got Lexus Safety System 3.0 standard on here as well, like your lane keeping system, you've got radar cruise control, automatic emergency braking, all that good stuff. This even has a hands-free trunk standard on every model. So after spending a week with this Lexus RZ, what do we think of it? There's definitely some pros and some cons, as there are with everything. And the cons with this are pretty typical to what I've complained about with Lexus recently, aside from the range. I think the range is the biggest kill factor for this RZ, at least for me personally. If you don't take long trips, don't have to travel very much outside of the infrastructure, it's totally fine. If you can charge at home, it's great. Let me know what you think, what you like and don't like, and check out the full detailed review in the description below. Have a great day.